We would like to take another moment to thank our sponsors, whose financial support helps make CapTime's Idea Fest the important event that it is. Special thanks to our presenting sponsor, UBS, the Burrish Group. They have been a major sponsor since the very first Idea Fest. Major sponsors include HealthX Ventures, Exact Sciences, and Quartz. Co-sponsors are Madison Gas and Electric, Godfrey & Kahn Law, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and Epic. Our Friends of Idea Fest sponsors are Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation, Madison Community Foundation, University Research Park, Cargo Coffee, Doc Smokehouse, and Forward Theater Company. Our media partners are the Wisconsin State Journal, Madison.com, WKOW Channel 27, and Hinckley Productions. Again, we thank you for your support and for making Idea Fest 2021 a huge success.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Murphy, Managing Editor of the Cap Times, and welcome to Cap Times Idea Fest. So glad to have you here, and I hope you've been enjoying the talk so far. I'm really looking forward to this one about sustaining innovation in a rapidly changing world. I'm going to turn this over to our moderator, Taha Jangda, in just a bit, but I'd like to take a moment to thank HealthX Ventures, which is one of the major sponsors and which put this excellent panel together for the festival. And my thanks to all of you for being here and for watching. We really appreciate it. If you're looking for further ways to support the Cap Times, I hope you'll consider becoming a member. You can find information out about that at membership.captimes.com. One small bit of housekeeping. You're welcome to submit questions to the panelists during the talk, but we ask that you do so using note cards that our volunteers have, and we'll take those up to Taha to work in as time permits. So without further delay, I'm going to turn it over to Taha, who invests in fast-growing digital health-based companies as partner at HealthX Ventures, and who advises various innovation communities. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you so much, guys. You know, it's interesting. I feel like this is a book reading. You know, I was watching Becoming the other day, and one of my role models is Michelle Obama, and seeing how she was doing a book reading. So, you know, it's quite humbling that this is a similar type of setting. But you know, today really isn't about me. And you know, we, as many of you know, especially locally, you know, I helped run a fund called HealthX Ventures. That was, you know, one of the most active funds here in Wisconsin over the past 5-6 years. And just by, you know, interesting thesis of mine has always been, how do you tie innovation or entrepreneurship into economic development? You know, can we look at various metrics and various things? You know, you look at Madison and Milwaukee, you look at the state as a whole, from Madison, Milwaukee, 85% or more over the past 4 years of net new job growth has taken place in these two cities. And I fundamentally believe that that is because of entrepreneurship and innovation. And so oftentimes we talk about disruptive innovation, right? Which is very, very critical and required. And you see a lot of that happening on the coast. But one of the parts of why I wanted to move to Wisconsin and have a fund here in the Midwest was because there is a level of sustainability that happens. There is a level of dedication that happens, resilience you can't find anywhere else in the country. And that is what we are really here to talk about. And the two of the esteemed guests that we have here today, Meghan and Faye. You know, Meghan actually just moved to Madison. We're recruiting Faye to move here as well. But, you know, the reason why I really pushed hard to have the two of them is because I look to these two as role models. You know, they are actually doing things, they are changing things, and their entire narrative and history is built up this moment. And I look to them as role models in the sense of being business leaders. I look to them as role models in the sense of being great citizens of this country and global citizens. And the work that they're doing, you know, and the courage that it takes to do what the two of them do, and the mission that they are fighting for as well. So, you know, what I would like to do is to take this time to pass it. You know, I see we'll go in alphabetical, well, not even alphabetical order. Actually, that works the same way. We'll start with Faye, and then we'll go to Meghan. But Faye, what I would really love to have, and I think, you know, the audience would appreciate, is if you could the both of you could share your stories and your journey of what's brought you here and what's coming, and why you chose your current path and what goes from there. And I'll let you guys take it from here.
Okay. Hi, everyone, and sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'd love to just tell you the story of Cancer IQ. It started with me as not originally an entrepreneur, but an accidental entrepreneur. I started off my career in financial services. I then moved on to a role in management consulting. And a lot of what I was doing was really just advising people on what to do, but not actually moving forward with execution. So what I was looking for personally was a change in my career where I was a little bit more responsible for operations and execution. And I chose to do that by taking a sabbatical from McKinsey and Company to work in-house at the University of Chicago Medical Center. Now, while I was there, I recognized that the future of medicine that we thought was super high tech and was cutting edge and was using all this data was unfortunately pretty manual. It was while I was at the University of Chicago where I worked with my mother, who's a world famous cancer geneticist and breast medical oncologist, that I realized a lot of the way she was practicing medicine, which was using genetic information to predict who is at risk and kind of manage that risk over time. A lot of the things that she was doing were things that were really only possible at the University of Chicago, which was disappointing because where most patients live and are seen and are treated are not in academic centers in urban areas like the University of Chicago, where you can make the most impact on healthcare and on society is by bringing innovations that may start at University of Chicago, but bringing those kinds of innovative ways of treating and addressing disease out into community-based health systems. So my journey with Cancer IQ came from observing what was happening at University of Chicago, feeling like it wasn't fair or there was some sort of injustice that was only happening there. And really taking that as taking a leap of faith and saying, listen, I can create a genetically informed, cancer prevention program, and I can make it available in your everyday hospital. So that's what really motivated me to not go back to McKinsey, but leave the University of Chicago and start a company that really democratized access to the type of care that would enable precision prevention just about everywhere.
Thank you, Faye. Megan?
That's hard to follow, Faye, and really an impressive background. I have something that is deeply in common in that I did not set out to be an entrepreneur. It wasn't kind of the dream that I had for many, many years, but I felt compelled to start Veda during my time in Washington, D.C. So I am a recent kind of bi-coastal transplant. I've been going back and forth between Madison and DC for a few years. And I was based here because my career and background was in the public policy space. So I built a consultancy over about 10 years, working with senior appropriators, mostly in the House, and was here and in the room for a lot of the conversations that were happening when the ACA was formed. We were meeting with leaders from health plans and hospital systems and patient advocacy groups, pharma and life sciences professionals and researchers, all coming to the conversation with their ideas about how to make the healthcare system work better for people. And during that time, I was incredibly frustrated that one of the biggest problems, but also one of the biggest opportunities, was going kind of unnoticed in the conversation. And that's the $1 trillion that the healthcare system spends every year on administration. And at that time, I wanted to impact the problem, but I wasn't in a position to do so. But when I met my co-founder, Bob Lindner, who did his undergraduate and postdoctoral research at the University of Wisconsin in physics, he's an astronomer, and he had been building automation tools in astronomy. And we started to kick around this idea. Could we take some of the tools that were being built in academic science to automate manual tasks and bring it to healthcare to be able to move dollars from administrative overhead to patient care. And so really what Veda was a moment of imagination for me and for my co-founder to think about what could be possible within the healthcare system with billions of additional dollars that were freed up through automating back office tasks that weren't making people healthy or keeping them well. It was just weight in the system that could be put to better purpose. And so when we founded Veda, we went out and met with health plan leaders and said, hey, where are you spending the most money on tasks that aren't doing anything to help your members, and how can we help you? And over the course of a few years, we built a platform that's used at 6 out of the top 10 health insurers across the country today that take information about physicians, things that go into directories that are member facing. When you're looking for a doctor on your insurance carrier's website, you go to find, is this person taking new patients? Are they practicing in my neighborhood? Can I get coverage under my health plan? We're able to take that data and completely automate it from the provider's office through the health plan to the member's computer screen in under 24 hours. And so that's a big transformation in terms of getting data from one place to another. But what it's also doing is allowing our customers to deploy additional resources to serve people. And we saw that happen a lot this year during COVID, when resources needed to be redeployed, particularly in call centers to help folks access information about testing and vaccines. Call center volume is something that's really challenging for health plans. They don't want people to have to wait on the phone to get the information they need. But oftentimes, questions around provider information that should be available online have been driving a lot of that call center volume. And we saw with our customers this year, as they were able to use Veda's automation to handle some of their back office work, those call center volume dropped, and it allowed people to get information more quickly about really timely questions around COVID treatment and prevention. And so that was something that was very exciting to us. I will say one kind of final thing before I kick it back to Taha. I had a kind of second secret mission when I founded this company. I worked in politics long enough to know that there was a playbook in Silicon Valley and investment in general. People look to pattern match. And so I really set out to not only build a company to solve a healthcare problem, but also to create a different model of what a venture-backed company could look like. And so as we chat today, I'd love to kind of ensure that we're talking about that opportunity that Taha saw in the Midwest and how we as entrepreneurs can create companies that really focus on building opportunity for everyone across the ecosystem in the Midwest and across the country.
So Megan, I was actually going to take the panel elsewhere, but my heart lies in what you just said, right? Disrupting these models, removing and breaking these terrible patterns of where, for many of you may not know this, but the recent statistic of female-led venture-backed companies is 3%. And some of them go even lower than this. And then if you look at women of color, they don't even make, unfortunately, a point of percent. And this is something that we have to change. And this is something we have to be very, very intentional about. And it's not just some form of exercise that we have to do to check in the box. If you look across our portfolio, across our entire portfolio, our women-led CEOs are all-stars. Our first unicorn multi-billion-dollar company in our portfolio is led by a woman. One of the largest technology rounds that has been done in the state of Wisconsin has been led by a woman like Meghan. And then you look at Faye, her company has more than tripled this past year. And we all know, we heard a panel from Exact Sciences earlier today and how much they are doing in terms of cancer screening. We talk about service and access and education. And that is exactly what Faye's company is doing and leading. So, I want to turn it back to the two of you. This is a very welcoming and open crowd, a place where we can be vulnerable. I was saying, Michelle Obama, but now I think I might have to go a little Brene Brown book reading and be a little bit more vulnerable here and let's have this conversation. You know, let this not just be a thing that we're doing to disrupt innovation, but to sustain innovation, we need to create our own patterns and our own models. So with that, I'll hand it off to Faye, you know, and then back to Meghan. But let's unwrap it. You know, I think we can all be very open here, very transparent, and just move forward.
All right. So I'll talk a little bit about how I've maybe broken a pattern and maybe starting a new pattern for innovation. I think it starts back just to my culture. So I am a first generation American. My parents were born and raised fully in Nigeria. And I think there may be a statistic out there about Nigerian Americans being some of the most exceptional immigrants that have come to the United States. And I think one of the things that helped me was really just being a high achieving person, understanding the high achieving playbook to be a venture-backed startup. So as I alluded to earlier, I started off my career in financial services. So I myself was on the investment side earlier in my career. And in being on that side, I understood what investors were looking for. So as I started my company that was really just concept stage idea, leaving the University of Chicago, just like I'd done with everything else in life, where I'd looked at the answer key and I'd figured out how to get A's, I tried to do that starting my company as well. And what happens a lot in the Midwest, and again, it's something to be mindful of and just understanding your environment, is I find that a lot of Midwest investors are looking for, first and foremost, they're looking for commercial traction or some sort of sign of light there. So I took, again, my score sheet and I said, okay, commercial traction, if that's really important, then I'm going to go after that. And what's interesting about the story of Cancer IQ is that I took an idea, I took a prototype, I socialized it with a number of health systems. And before I had even built a product, I had 2 5-figure checks from leading health systems here in the Midwest, actually ordering and subscribing to Cancer IQ. So I think the first thing that is needed for more people of color and more women, to be successful in venture and starting companies that are ultimately going to be very successful is sometimes they just need that answer key. Instead of people beating around the bush and telling you no, but not telling you exactly why, I think if people are a lot more transparent and let you know what they're looking for, I really do think there are a number of people that will go out and get it. I was missing that, no, I'm not a multiple time founder. No, I'm not, a savant engineer. No, I'm not, coming from Silicon Valley. But I think what that meant is I knew the other parts of my scorecard I really needed to focus on. And that's what ultimately got people to give me a chance early on. And that early funding, it really did make a difference for me being able to scale the company and get it to where it is today. I think maybe the second thing I'd add on top of that is I do think right now there's a huge environment of, I feel like a lot of people may be overcoached and underfunded. So I think once you actually have given people the playbook and said, here's what you need to do to be successful at your venture, I really do think you also just need to give people a check, write a check, give people a chance. And like Taha has rightly done, I think a lot of female and women of colors are trying to really outdo some of their peers. And ultimately, when they strive for those things, some of us have been very successful.
Amen to write a check.
That's a great tweet right there. So, yeah, Meghan, would love your thoughts on that as well, and what you've kind of set out to do as a secondary intention, but also just a big, large mountain to climb and pave the path for others as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, in addition to knowing the answer key, getting in the front door was a huge opportunity changer for me, right? It was the network of people a lot of VCs don't take cold calls. And so being able to figure out how to use my network, which wasn't a venture network, but I did have one, and really dig in to who do I know and who believes in me, to 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon myself, to the venture money that I needed. I think there is a level of humility that sometimes little girls are taught. Fortunately, my parents didn't subscribe to that. And so my mom was a professional, she's a professor of nursing. And so I was always taught that I had space to take up in a room and that my ideas were important. And so, I think it's been critical to me, and it's critical for other women as they're growing in their careers, to see women taking up space in the conversation so that you feel comfortable reaching out to your network and saying, hey, this is the business that I'm starting. Here's the path that I'm on. Not only can you help me and give me advice, which is great, but also I can see that you know someone who can write a check, and being able to network your way to that investment. The other thing that I would kind of offer is I had a challenging time, even with really good customer attraction. We had our first year in the market, we had one of the top 4 health insurers in the country put down a pretty good sized order and make a big bet on us. And I still found myself oftentimes, particularly on the coast, as the only person in the room that looked like me, particularly when we were going out to funds that were focused on automation and AI, because that's the place we were playing in. And I will never forget, there was a pitch competition, and on my way to the stage, a VC that I had been really excited to meet handed me his sandwich crust because he thought that I was one of the servers at the lunch event. And I learned 2 things from that experience. One was that I would take those moments as motivators. And, I put the sandwich crust in the trash can as I went up on the stage to pitch. And I was able to comment on that just very briefly as I started my remarks. Awesome. And use it as a motivator to make sure that I would make someone else money that he should have made by investing in me. That there would be another investor that would benefit from my hard work, that would recognize what I was going to achieve. And then the second thing that I learned from that was that I wouldn't wear black dresses at pitch competitions anymore. So it sort of became a notable thing at Beta that I like to wear bright colors, because I just didn't want to be in that position again. But it's important, and I talk about it not to say, woe is me, or there are these bad people, but to really open it up to say, look, if you're the only person in the room and this happens to you, it is not an indication of your future success. You get to make your future success regardless of, people that may not see your potential. And so I was really fortunate, again, to meet Taha and Mark Bakken and the HealthX team early on enough, because they didn't have any of those preconceived notions, and they could see the potential in the company that I was building and in the customers that were investing in Beta. And so that's my kind of motivational moment for folks in the audience that might have hit a roadblock. It is not about you, and it is not an indicator of what you can achieve.
Wow, that is, listening to both of you is incredibly humbling. And a lot of times we think about why we do what we do, right? And we're much more than just a job and things that we're doing. And you can probably hear in my voice, I'm genuinely touched by both what you said and now thinking of what is it that we can do, right? And what is it that we can do of now. It's, find these awesome entrepreneurs, invest in them, break the pattern. But now it's, how do we expand that, right? And how do you build a community? Meghan, I still remember, the last time we spoke, you said you're not looking to just build a company, you're looking to build a community. And Faye, you know, as you were speaking, I remember the first time we had that conversation, right? I was chasing Faye to find a way to give her money and to allow me to, you know, the privilege of being an investor. And I remember I did the same thing to Meghan after she pitched at JP Morgan, where I was like, oh, I need you to talk to me. You know, let's have breakfast, whatever you need. I'll walk with you to your next meeting. And, you know, the community aspect is one side. And Faye, you remember the first thing we talked about when we jumped on? Was that when I looked you guys up, it was talking about culture and talking about the music playlist we had.
Taha found my my like YouTube R&B playlist. That it's actually a funny Cancer IQ story because it goes back to our history. The first people that worked for Cancer IQ were all engineers, and there was a huge release that was coming out. And to motivate everyone and get them to keep coding all night, I had to put together a playlist of like literally 90s R&B slow jams to keep everyone going and keep everybody calm. And that was the playlist that Taha found online. He told me about a couple of the artists that were missing from that playlist.
Like Genuine. I don't think
And
you had a Genuine
that
stuff.
was the only reason I stayed on the phone long enough, and I'm so happy I did.
That's kind of, so to that point, you know, Meghan, if you can talk about the community, Faye about the, you know, doing it for the culture and building a community that comes afterwards that can stay, you know, the three of us would have never done our jobs if we move on and it doesn't stay on its own, right? If what we're doing, not just in terms of the problem we're solving, but the movement we're creating and the jobs we're creating, you know, if we leave, then we have really failed. So I'm really curious what the two of you are doing for the culture and for building that level of community as well. So I don't know who wants to take it first, but you know, we can kind of go that way.
I can go first on this one. I'm pretty excited. I mean, we've doubled down on our Midwest bet. So during COVID, pre-COVID, Veda had an office here in Washington, D.C. and in Madison, Wisconsin. And what we found was that the quality of life and the quality of talent that was sort of untapped in the Midwest was something that we wanted to double down on. We have a hybrid team, but we closed down our East Coast office and said, we're going to make this bet on the Midwest because there are incredibly talented people and other companies that we can partner with and be a part of this cool growing ecosystem. You know, we find our partners not just in Madison, but in Chicago, in Minneapolis, and in Milwaukee. And there's this cool thing that's happening with entrepreneurs popping up in Midwestern cities, particularly in healthcare, that I think is such an interesting and invigorating community to be a part of. And I would say the other thing that I try to do is build the next layer of entrepreneurs within our company. So we talk a lot about how to be leaders. We get people together over coffee. We've got some, you know, book clubs internally and women's leadership coffee, and try to create space for innovative thinking and community building, even within our own employee base. I see that as my secret weapon to starting my own fund. Once Veda is done, I'm hoping to have a team of future innovators and entrepreneurs that have grown within Veda and then go on to do their next thing. And because our workforce is so diverse, both in background and you know, demographically, we grow the community we're building. And so I think that's just a really important part of investing in a diverse workforce, is then enabling the ones who choose to go on and be entrepreneurs to stay with them and continue to be a part of their success as they grow their own businesses.
Faye, I don't know if you want to take a stab at it.
Wow, well, Meghan has definitely taken it to a different degree, but I think one of the things that I choose to do to build community is really be overly generous with my time. Again, you know, it goes back to what I initially said about if you give someone the scorecard, it's easier for them to try and achieve within that scorecard. So what I'm always willing to do for other entrepreneurs, both in the HealthX portfolio, even in my office here in Chicago, I incubate 2 other companies. I'm always willing to share my stories, share my wins, share my losses, so that other people can build from that knowledge and understand how to score A's as much as possible.
So you actually brought up, the losses, right? So oftentimes, we look at entrepreneurship and we read the fantastic press releases, or you close this customer, you close this round, you were at 5 employees a year ago, now you're at 100, right? But what a lot of people don't necessarily understand, or something we don't remove the curtain on, is, it's a very lonely and taxing journey. And those losses, as an investor, I'm probably not the best at it, right? But I'm like, you got 10 more months till you're out of cash. What are we going to do? And put that pressure on. But, how do you work through those losses? And can you just shine a light on that level of resilience that's required? And really the hard work that goes behind these high growth and fast paced companies. Oh man, we'll see. All right, I'll go with Megan smiled first, so Megan gets it.
I'm gonna learn to look at the ground here. I mean, look, like you can see right now, right? Like you're pretty trained to not talk about your losses when you're starting a company, and incubating it out in the world. But I would say, 2 things that help get through those moments. One is building a really strong core team of people that are in it with you. It is lonely, but it is only as lonely as the people that are on your journey with you. And so I've been really fortunate not only to have a co-founder, but also to have a few team members that have been in it with me since very, very early on, and that have stuck beside me, and they know what it's like when we couldn't make payroll, or when we were watching the bank account every week, like, okay, we got 2 weeks left, we got to close this deal, or we have to get this launch out, we need to get a customer live. Like, having that camaraderie can really get you through incredibly challenging times. And then the other thing that I would say that's been meaningful to me is keeping the vision in mind of wanting investors 10 years from now to look at a female founded technology company with a core team in the Midwest, no Ivy League degrees, and say, you know what, I'm going to make a bet that looks like Beta. They might not match all the patterns we had before, but man, they have a lot of customers and people really love their products. So I'm willing to make this bet. And having that long-term goal in mind, that's more than just the balance sheet, has been a really powerful motivator to get us over those humps.
Thank you, Megan.
So part of the reason I paused, and it's a little bit of a hard question, is I think one of the key things that gets any entrepreneur through the day is a little bit of craziness. And the reason I say this is because if, as a founder of a company, you believe in your vision. If you don't believe in it, then nobody else will believe in it. And every time I think back to what has potentially been a loss, in my head, I've never seen it that way. I've seen it as they don't see it yet. I'm gonna get them later, or they're not ready for this yet, but they're going to. And I believe that I'm gonna overcome the hurdle. And I think that, that founder vision and belief that you can do things are the things that really make it so that any setback is really it's a path to ultimately getting over that setback. And how do you do that? One way that you're able to truly believe is, again, maybe it's that scorecard. It's knowing like when not to believe, right? Like maybe this doesn't make sense or that doesn't make sense. Like there's a lot of stuff that you can have in your head to hold you back, but If you are still looking at all the indicators and they're flashing green, there's no such thing as a loss. It's just, something taking longer than you expect it to.
Man, this is gold right here. Both of you guys, thank you. I want to bring us back to what the title was, and we'll jump back because I have an awesome question here that we'll come back to later. That actually I think would be a killer closer. So thank you for saying that question. Oh, that was Mike. All right, that makes sense now. So, how do the two of you define innovation? And also, how is it that, you make sure that you don't become complacent like the incumbents you came in to disrupt and want to continually innovate and gradually pursue that and make it sustainable, right? So Megan's gone first twice now, so I'll throw this one to Faye.
Okay. So again, because I was an accidental innovator, let me just explain what I was looking at, and I think you guys will see innovation. So let's go back to the core of what Cancer IQ does. When I was at the University of Chicago, one thing I observed was a really cutting edge clinic called the Cancer Risk Clinic. And in that clinic, there was an interdisciplinary team of nurses, genetic counselors, oncologists, primary care. And for every patient who went to that clinic, they would get a full family history analysis. They would get genetic testing. They would have a full team kind of evaluate their case and give that patient a more tailored, personalized cancer prevention plan because of those genetic, social, and familial risk factors that the team may have found. Not only do they get a plan, but those patients would be monitored and followed up on a regular basis. And ultimately, those patients were compliant with their plans. And, for 20, 30 years, they'd be part of this cancer risk clinic and never be diagnosed with cancer. Now, the problem was that, the whole engine running this life-saving clinic was on paper. The patients would come in and they'd spend, 30 minutes talking through their family, and somebody would be drawing a family history tree. To get genetic testing, sometimes, they'd have to draft these long love letters to insurance companies to even justify getting access to the testing. And there were these huge, manila folders of cases that people would go to and sometimes reach towards those cases when they were trying to develop someone's plan. And there was this whole apparatus of people around this that truly made it possible. So I got my moment of innovation when I was told to take this cancer risk clinic and take it out to one of University of Chicago's affiliate practices that wasn't an academic center, didn't have all those people, and was just trying to get through their day. And I said, well, here's how they do it at University of Chicago. Let's get started. And they literally said, no way. A, like, we're not doing stuff on paper. B, we don't even understand a lot of this stuff. And if you're saying that we need to hire like 3 or 4 extra people to prevent cancer, we're just not going to do it at all. So a lot of the innovation that I originally had was taking every step of the process and automating it. But then also trying to make sure that there was a business value in doing this, right? Because if you go to a cancer center and you say, hey, I'm going to help you prevent cancer, they're like, wait a minute, that's how we make money. What's going on? So a lot of the innovation that I had to ultimately come up with was not only, how do you take a technology and automate a lot of the waste so that your everyday primary care physician can be the equivalent of that 10-person, cancer prevention team at the University of Chicago. But then the second thing I needed to do is I needed to find an innovative business model. I needed some way of demonstrating, return on investment or value, for a health system. So they would not only, like what Cancer IQ does and maybe find some wealthy donors or grants to fund it, like the University of Chicago, but that they could actually find operating budget to make sure it was a core part of their health system so that all patients could get access to it. So I think for me, my aha in the innovation was that I wasn't, displacing things. I wasn't, disrupting, a lot of status quo. I was really just trying to make something scalable that should have been scalable ages ago. But no one had come in with that fresh set of eyes on that dysfunction and kind of fix it. And I think that's why, being a healthcare entrepreneur is so exciting, quite frankly, especially as someone who's coming from the financial services industry where, they're kind of 20 years ahead of time. There's still so many of those opportunities in healthcare. And it sounds like that's something that Meghan's doing as well, that really take people who are passionate and dedicated and can think about those innovative business models to overcome.
Yeah, healthcare is definitely ripe for a lot of innovation from the outside. We saw a lot of the same things, right, in the kind of broken business models. And, Taha, part of your question was like, how do you not become complacent like the other big players in the space? And that's something that, from my perspective, we set a pretty lofty goal that requires us to continue to be creative every day. About a year ago, we sat down and said, as a team, what do we want to do to healthcare? Like, can we put one number in place that will be our North Star for Beta, for the life of this business? And we decided that we wanted to automate 1 billion hours a year of manual administrative work, so that health plans and providers can focus on patients and not paperwork. And that requires us to continue to come up with new and creative ways to move the back office tasks to automation so that the focus can stay on people. And the more we keep that vision in mind and the purpose behind the technology, it drives the need to continue to innovate. And I think as a community, whatever industry we're in, whether you're working in financial services or health tech or consumer tech or education technology, keeping a North Star in mind about what you're trying to change in the community around you can be a huge motivator to continue to push you to innovate. And we see bigger companies and big players, sometimes their teams lose sight of those loftier goals. And so, that's been our biggest motivator to kind of stay focused on continuing to drive new product development and bring new things to market to continue to move closer and closer towards that $1 billion North Star goal.
That's incredible. I feel like I'm going to watch the live stream and probably write 10 different blog posts just off the two of you. And hopefully Cap Times will support that, and we'll be able to do that as the next iteration of this. But, we do have some audience questions here. And I'll start with the one of the latest ones, which is, I know both of you have lived in different cities across the country. And both of you now started spending time in Madison, and Meghan, you've made it your home. What are things that local communities can do to not only foster and create the growth, but nurture, high technology, fast technology companies like the two of yours? Faye's got to tie it up, so it'll be 2-2 on the first answers. So I'll give it to Faye.
So I think the first thing is to write a check. I think I said that earlier. I think, having a community of, venture investors or even angel investors or, corporate strategic entities that are willing to invest in innovation, that's going to be the number one reason that entrepreneurs will flock to you initially. One of the things I really like about my relationship with Madison is that for me, it's an Uber ride away, to be around, the HealthX ecosystem, because their check to me is not just a source of money, but it's the beginning of a partnership, and you want to be around your business partners. So making sure that their venture funds and angel investors and that be part of the equation is one way to get community. I think the second is to make sure that the people who are in that community know each other. because we all know that you can always learn from someone who's ahead of you, but you can also learn from people who are right next to you, going through the same phase of your journey. So instead of you making the same kind of mistakes that you'd have to do, on your own, and part of the reason maybe the Silicon Valley community works so well is because they're trading information across companies very rapidly. And by doing that, everyone can try and avoid those similar mistakes and be successful together. And then I'd say the third thing is really just also making sure you have talent to actually run these companies. I think one of the things that's been really attractive about Madison is, there are those big, companies. There's the Epic of the worlds that are taking people fresh out of college and instilling really great training. And, as you're starting a company, having that infrastructure to train people and make people great early in their career is not always there. But if you've got great universities and you've got great companies that are spilling out actual human talent, it's also really attractive for startups to not only start in Madison, but stay in Madison, because they can continue to scale their talent at the same pace as the rest of their business.
Yeah, I would double down on the investment in education and talent. We ended up in Madison in the first place because my co-founder was just coming off a postdoc there in the astronomy department. We've actually have a whole team of former academic physicists from UW that have ended up at Beta over the past few years. And I know this community in Madison is particularly committed to funding the university, but sometimes it gets lost a little bit on some of the hard sciences and how they connect to creating jobs. And it's a passion of mine and of Bob's particularly to make that connection. He has lots of friends who went through physics programs, ended up with physics PhDs, and are now in the financial services industry, building new cryptocurrency platforms. They are at Amazon and big tech companies on the West Coast, but they're also, like Bob, growing businesses where they went to school. They're growing them in their own backyards in places like Madison, and that's because of the investment in research and development that's happening in the community. But I would say just as important for us as an employer in Madison are the investments in places like the Madison Area Technical College. We've actually used some coursework as a way to upskill some of our employees. So an opportunity to have ways to reinvest in an employee base and upskill and keep people trained with the newest technologies and create jobs that impact a broader segment of the community. Those kind of resources are really important when companies are looking for a home and a headquarters. And the last thing I would say, as somebody who spent 15 years in DC and over the past few years has really got to know Madison, the lifestyle and the arts and the investment in music and food and wine and galleries and music that happens in Madison is a part of what makes it attractive for people who haven't lived there before to make Madison home. And that choice is a part of growing the business community and the economy, to have the richness that you get in a much larger city in a place that's really affordable and welcoming is something that's really special. And so obviously that has been something that's very special to me. And, I've gotten to know Madison over the past few years and I truly, truly love it. And I think the environment here will draw more businesses from the coast back to the heart of the country.
Awesome. Thank you for that. There is one question that I've been holding on to, and that was something that was sent very earlier when we started talking about, breaking the pattern and just creating a new model, right? And both of you hit on aspects of this, and when I think of entrepreneurship and innovation, and we'll end with this question. So whoever gets it last Now it's who gets it first is first, but whoever gets it last is a closer. So I'll let the two of you decide what the order is. But what attracted me to entrepreneurship was, to me personally, right? Like similar to Faye, my parents came here as immigrants to create a new life, to provide a sense of security and stability. We lived in an area where education was very hard, right? And there were a lot of different things going on. But entrepreneurship is the American Dream 2.0. For second generation Americans here, knowing that with dedication, with passion, solving something, you can create something very, very powerful and that can live on much more beyond you. And the question I have that I want to end it on, and this is something Mike and I have spoken about quite a lot, is how do you overcome the intimidation or the mountain that STEM is to a lot of communities, right? It's called STEAM. So adding arts in there as well. How do you plant the seed or recruit our future leaders of this country and of this world and of technology, specifically young people of color and young women, to overcome the standard pattern of what you see in STEAM. So I don't know who wants to take it first, and I don't know who wants to close, but I'll defer to the two of you. Otherwise, I'll probably just go back to alphabetical order like I did earlier. So Faye smiled, so I'll give it to her first.
I don't mind taking it. So I think it's about really showing those signs of success and showing more role models. So again, even if I start earlier in my career, I did what was the all-star career, back when I was graduating from college, and that was investment banking. It was the greatest job to have. That was the path to wealth. That was the popular thing at the time, and I invested all my time in trying to go down that path. And I rode that wave, and then you have another wave, which is, now everybody wants to be a management consultant, and suddenly you see stars ahead of you, doing well in management consulting, and that was, the it job and what I wanted to do at the time. I'd say right now we are in the absolute best time to be in tech. Part of the reason people are just up and leaving their jobs in finance and in kind of the standard industries and chasing entrepreneurship now is because they've seen, the incredible wealth that's been created, incredible I wouldn't call it like the work-life balance, but maybe just the being unshackled from that like corporate world, but still doing well professionally and financially. They've seen that's possible. And I think that now, and maybe I'll close with this funny anecdote. So at the time when I had, taken this sabbatical from McKinsey and I'd started this company, I don't think my mother admitted this to anybody. I think she literally was like, "Oh, my daughter works at McKinsey," or "She's going to McKinsey," right? And it wasn't until, you started to see things shift where like tech entrepreneurship and, all these other things are happening and, oh, we're raising money. Now she's so proud to brag about how I'm a, venture-backed entrepreneur and, continuing to scale, and here's how many employees you have. And I think that happens because, again, you see more of those markers for success. And I'm hoping, that my success will inspire more people to come down this path than, the popular paths of the past.
That's hard to follow. Thank you. I also kind of went immediately to an anecdote, and mine's a little bit different. So a few years ago, after I had started Beta, I got my daughter's report card, and she and I are very similar. And it had a very similar comment that a lot of parents have seen over the years. She's incredibly bright. She's getting great grades, but she talks too much. And I was told countless times that I talk too much. And it is a very, very small example of what women and girls here in their communities and how they're honored and valued in the economy. And, you know, people of color, people from differing backgrounds, new immigrants, women, we all have these stories about what the community sees us achieving. That as business leaders, I think part of our success is being able to create a different narrative in the community that honors the potential in all of those kids, so that they're told, all of our kids are told, about the things that they're able to achieve and are uplifted in a way that honors their potential, because our economy has so much to benefit from that. And, you know, I'm hopeful that not only can I be a mentor, but that my voice can be used in a way to really drive the point home that investing in the potential of all kids from all backgrounds in all parts of the country is something that's important to build our economy and our success as a nation, in addition to just a good thing to do for people. And so, you know, I'm fortunate and I really appreciate the platform that the Cap Times have given us to be able to speak here. And, you know, hopefully some young person will look at the success that we've been able to have and see a path of their own in the future.
I don't know what better way there is to end than that. So let's give these two incredible role models in our community and entrepreneurs a round of applause, and we'll move on to the next session. Thank you so much, guys.
We would like to take another moment to thank our sponsors, whose financial support helps make Cap Times Idea Fest the important event that it is. Special thanks to our presenting sponsor, UBS, the Burrish Group. They have been a major sponsor since the very first Idea Fest. Major sponsors include HealthX Ventures, Exact Sciences, and Quartz. Co-sponsors are Madison Gas and Electric, Godfrey & Kahn Law, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and EPIC. Our Friends of Idea Fest sponsors are Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation, Madison Community Foundation, University Research Park, Cargo Coffee, Doc Smokehouse, and Forward Theater Company. Our media partners are the Wisconsin State Journal, Madison.com, WKOW Channel 27, and Hinckley Productions. Again, we thank you for your support and for making Idea Fest 2021 a huge success.